Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
People with weird, obscure jobs. What is your job and how did you get the job? I was a puppeteer for many years and I actually got that job from an ad in the classifieds. It cracks me up that there is a scene in Being John Malkovich where he tries to find puppeteer in the classifieds and fails. I can't believe it. I remember that movie because at the time I was trying to become a cartoonist or animator and there was no way I was finding anything like that in the classifieds. You actually succeeded. I watch TV commercials for a living. I basically make sure there is no vulgar language, offensive material or unsubstantiated claims being made. I got this job through a recruiter and I told them I was interested in media. Best job I've ever had. I work in a lab where I raise moths. I got it by telling my lab partner that I love bugs and he hooked me up. I used to work in an entomology lab. I got to raise a lot of squash beetles, corn earworms, and mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were the worst because I had to feed them. I'm now extremely allergic. The only thing worse than feeding them was dissecting them. They're so small. I work in a clinical lab where I get to play with baby sweat for a bit of my day. We are testing for chloride level. Increased chloride in sweat is one of the diagnostic markers for cystic fibrosis. I am a clinical laboratory scientist. Not all clinical labs perform this test, but I am lucky enough to work at a lab where we do a couple interesting low-volume tests. You know when you're watching a sports program and you see the little pop graphic in the corner, i.e. a baseball player's stats, or an advertisement for Easy Mac, or stay tuned for Saved by the Bell at 9? Yeah, that was me. I updated those graphics and uploaded them to Fox Sports. Since Fox Sports is a 24-hour channel, there's always one guy in the office 24 hours a day. I spent a year on a team reclassifying the Duke University library system from Dewey Decimal to Library of Congress. Had to learn like 4 different alphabets just to label them properly. I used to work on a lavender farm. It's totally unrelated to my field of study and incredibly difficult in terms of manual labor. But man, was it a beautiful place. I tended to the plants, took care of goats, and did processing for the herbs and honey. My grandparents are farmers and so I grew up with mediocre knowledge of field work and beekeeping, and when a friend's mom decided to start a business centered around lavender, she asked me to help out for the summer. I'm a house manager for a family of 4. Basically I'm a female butler. I've worked for them for 14 years, starting as the kids' nanny. They're my second family pretty much. I organize tradespeople, holidays, birthdays, daily meals, dinner parties, housekeeping, the list goes on. It's challenging at times but keeps me on my toes and I enjoy that. Concrete petrographer. I just started this month. I studied geology in college and now my job is to look at concrete using petrographic methods I learned at school and conduct ASTM tests to determine quality of concrete. Very interesting work because concrete is engineered rock and there's a lot more to it than you think. So not job, but company, industry. I was their first marketing person. I worked at a company that specialized in phased array ultrasonic non-destructive testing. The technicians made a shit ton of money and got to work in crazy places like nuclear power plants in Canada and offshore oil rigs in Norway. They even worked on some of the NASA launching pads. Water quality testing. I go around and collect samples for various testing to ensure the water meets the state standards. I got lucky and met someone who was volunteering at my previous job and she told me to apply. Was not the direction I saw my career going, but it was definitely worth it. I cleaned grills for super rich people in Palm Beach. Even got to clean Michael Jordan's at one point. And it was recommended to me from a friend who was in sobriety with me after I got clean. I work in QC, quality control, for media. In one company they occasionally paid me to watch porn to make sure it was in sync and in good quality for video on demand distribution. In another company I spent years watching movies before release in secure theater-like rooms. To make sure the files are ready for distribution, subtitles and audio in sync. No picture corruptions. Stuff like that. I always got to watch the biggest movies of the year in a giant screen weeks before they were released, sometimes months. I got the job by going to film school. I'm a potter. Not sure if that fits the bill for weird. I used to be the manager for a museum art school, and began taking classes there years ago. Eventually transitioned into being a full-time potter and pottery teacher. I don't know if this is obscure, but my boyfriend is a high-rise window cleaner. There are only 4 in our city. He loves his job. Sometimes when he is working, I will go to the city to the building he is cleaning and look up at him on the street. So cute. Edit, only 4 high-rise window cleaners. We live in a small Canadian city. Also fun fact, one day I was in the city and he was on his lunch break. So he took me on the roof of the tallest building and fucked me doggy style looking over the city. Past job, I worked at a whorehouse. I was the receptionist. Guys would come and I'd buzz them in after confirmation of their appointment from the intercom. They would enter, check it, get then a water or pop. Take payment. Then I'd call the girl from the intercom and they would lead him to the room. It is technically an adult massage parlor. I applied off Craigslist. Went for the interview. Only real rule was receptionist cannot become escorts and escorts cannot after chose to be reception. Official court stenographer. I type everything everyone says in court. I was told about it in high school and thought it sounded cool so I went for it. Took 5.5 years in college. But I'm nationally certified to type 260 WPM and regularly push above 300 WPM in court. My job's not weird. I'm a welder, but what I do isn't very common. I build Virginia-class submarines. I transport horse embryos, oocytes, and semen. I got the job because my sister is an equine vet who specializes in reproduction. I mix fire retardant for fighting wildfires. A lot of people know that airplanes drop retardant on fires but don't think about the millions of dollars of infrastructure that is behind that operation. Everyone who works at my base started by working at the local ski resort. It's a good way to earn enough money in the summer to coast all winter, so we keep the jobs among fellow ski bums. In the summer I guard and clean the toilet units, not the toilets, for festivals. I got the job trying to find a cheap way to go to the big festivals, and this organization was looking for volunteers. So all I have to do is stand in front of the units. Make sure the ground stays clean. Everyone had toilet paper and clear a block of units so the cleaning team can do their job. Another part of the job is making sure no one dies or passes out in such an unit. You can't imagine how many drunk, often naked people we need to get out of these units and escort them to the first aid. I work as an air traffic controller. Not weird, but not many of us around. I pretty much fell into it after passing an aptitude and it's just been swell since. Albeit, the classic phrase from strangers, isn't that the job with the most suicides? It might be. But I don't know anyone. It's actually super chill and rewarding when you get it right. We always try get it right. But when you get it super right you're dead pleased. I am diver. When I was 13 I started diving, and in the army. I did it, too, so I love my job now as an underwater worker. Mine isn't necessarily weird, but how I fell into it was, around 10 years ago I was working in the IT industry. I decided to help my dad out one weekend sell hunting gear at a Militaria Expo, basically antique military gear and army disposal. One of the sellers had a vampire killing kit. Knowing very little about antiques at the time, I pulled out each piece. Checking them over, the story checked out. Did some research on my phone throughout the day and found out that it could be a fake in 2 ways. It could be a kit put together by someone out of antique pieces to make it seem real. And technically, even if it was authentic, it was a Victorian fake. With the fear of vampires in the late 19th century, Con men put together vampire killing kits and sold them to rich businessmen visiting Europe. What stood out to me though was the main reason I bought it. In the middle of the kit was a crucifix with an ivory inlay that doubled as a goddamn percussion pistol. Long story short, I took a chance, spent $1,000 on it and got persecuted by my father for such a dumb move. I didn't have much in my savings at the same. I took it to Ripley's Believe It or Not in Australia and they flew someone out from the US to look at it, which was pretty exciting. Within 5 minutes of looking at it they offered me a ridiculous sum of money for what I thought was a large investment to begin with. While in ways I do regret selling the kit, it allowed me to start a career in the antiques trade. 5 years later I moved to the UK to study a degree and now I specialize in rare obscure antiques that have allowed me to travel all around the world sourcing new weird objects. P.S. Don't worry. I gave my dad a cut of the vampire kit profits for believing in me, cheeky smiley face. My dad told me of this one time he went to my mom's work Christmas party. She was a banker. As the bankers talked shop and tried to sound impressive, the spouses grew bored and talked among themselves. The guy who drew the biggest crowd was this man who worked at a toilet factory and he did quality control. His job was to flush toilet paper and simulated poop down the toilet. The people at the party, especially the men, were riveted by his descriptions and peppered him with questions while all these upper management bankers looked on with irritation. I'm a Chiron operator. I trigger motion graphics on live TV. I was an art student and also was in stage crew in high school. These things got me jobs backstage in theater, which got me a job in TV doing normal stuff like cameraman and stuff like that. Since I was an art major I asked if I could do graphics and they let me on the weekends. And my specialty eventually turned to the Chiron, which ingests the graphics that artists make and plays them back through the switcher that controls the news broadcast. It's not technically an art position, but at my job specifically I could make the graphics in After Effects and Photoshop during the day if I have a computer free, and in the afternoon I play the Chiron. Usually you are one or the other, because Chiron operators don't need art skills. It's just another tech job like audio operator or camera operator or stage manager or whatever. These kinds of jobs are getting rarer because they are being automated. But since I'm also an artist I get to keep my job because if someone leaves I can take their job. I design water parks. I went to college for graphic design and advertising. In my last year I had to do an internship. So I took one at an aquatic engineering firm to help organize photos. 10 years later I am a project manager and create resort deck and water park programs. I'll answer for a friend of mine. Former college roommate. He works for a company which makes coin and paper money sorting and counting machines. They pay him to stay home and be on call. He's a happy guy. I don't know how he got the job. But he's extremely mechanically inclined and pretty inventive. Though calculus tripped him up and he failed college. When he was in high school, he mounted a model rocket like a hood ornament on his car. Controlled by a button on the dash. Push the button and it fires the rocket. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. See you next time.